I don't need to sell. I work in HR or in IT or wherever else, which is not a sales position. Maybe you heard that before. Maybe you know this phrase that someone says, I don't have to sell because I work in XYZ, some department which is not sales. And the question is, do we need sales skills? Do leaders need sales skills? Do employees need sales skills? Does anyone need sales skills or not? And that's what we're going to talk about today. I know that the reputation sales skills have is not great. Usually people say, oh, being salesy just means you're talking to someone and giving them someone, pushing something on them they really don't need. Often there's the car salesman metaphor, which is very quickly brought to the table. And that, of course, has nothing to do with sales we are talking about here. The phrase, I don't have to work, I don't have to sell, I work in XYZ is very present still in today's organizations. And the question is, do we need sales skills? Our topic for this week. And of course, we have to talk about, there are a couple of things in sales we do not need. There is, of course, an approach to sales which is unacceptable, unprofessional, and does not meet the standards we should expect when we work in a corporate or any kind of other organizational environment. When you go on the internet, you will very quickly see this kind of sales. The internet is full of it, especially when you go to YouTube, for example. The advertising you see between the videos. If you don't have YouTube Plus, you will have to make it bearable to go through these. Often there are people who sell something to you, always in the same way. So first, you will have great promises and the wildest claims about usually more income, more profit, more wealth, whatever else. And of course, there is no proof of anything they have done. You just see something and you see the claim, but there is no proof, no evidence, no facts, no data. What they then do in the following, these people, they misuse the technique of storytelling. There's a shameless overselling process happening. And I'm going to give you an example of the worst thing I probably heard in the last couple of months. There was a product, and I'm going to change the name of the product. Let's just call it Heart Power. So like the heart, which beats in your body. So Heart Power, and there was a person sitting there telling a very personal story with, of course, no evidence, no proof. It sounded completely made up. And at the end, he said, oh, I'm really happy that I purchased this because I only had very little money on the account, so I had to decide, pay the rent or purchase Heart Power. And I purchased Heart Power, and today I'm very wealthy. That, of course, is ridiculous. Often you spot these kind of people. They usually hover around the same environment. In the same video, they said, oh, we go to Dubai because Dubai is the country of my dreams. Listen, when your country, and of course there might be different reasons why you go to Dubai. I'm not going to shame anyone for going there. However, if someone says, my dream country is a country where no democracy exists, there are no rights for women, and there are no rights for minorities. Happy Pride Month, by the way. If you think that this is your preferred country, very quick decision if you are led by values like democracy or human rights, then you will not do business with any of these people. By the way, if you do business with these kind of people, the result is always the same. And by the way, as a young entrepreneur, I lost a 5-digit amount of money on people like these. There's a big disappointment. They give you very general concepts which are not specialized at all. All the work has to be done by you, which of course you're not able to do. You really drop hard from the emotional higher to the reality of the lie that has been sold to you. And that, of course, is the sales skill we do not need. However, there are certain situations where we need to talk about if a sales skill might come in handy. I'll give you an example. Let's say you're a leader or you're a member of staff and you are part of a project. And of course, when you are, let's say you are a leader, there's a project and you have to convince people you want to do this project, but it's not a popular project. It's not amongst the popular topics. So you go to the next higher level, usually in the hierarchy, because they have the power to sign off resources you get, for example, people, time, or money. And you most likely need all three for the project. Very quickly, people talk about details and they try to convince people by the factual details they have. And then they are surprised that this obviously does not work. When you talk your tech talk, your specialized talk, your HR talk, your whatever specialization you have talk, you will most likely not convince people of higher levels of hierarchy. And I give you the reason for that in a minute. Just a different example. Let's say you work in IT and tech and you need more money for investments because you have to keep up to date. Let's say security measures have to be taken, new devices have to be purchased, and you have to convince others about that, let's say the board level. So very quickly I see people from IT standing in front of boards and senior leaders and managers, executives, and they talk about this tech thing and that tech thing and this tech advantage and that tech advantage. You will not convince the vast majority of leaders by technical details, even if you are factually completely right with what you say. The third example I have, probably you heard the phrase when someone says, oh, I work in HR, and HR is nothing, is nowhere near sales. Let's look at the market. Is talent scarce? Is it difficult to get talent signed up in your organization? And most likely you will get to the conclusion saying, yeah, it is pretty scarce. It's pretty hard to get. So as soon as you sit down with someone, you have to convince them to choose the working contract you offer them over the contract that other offer. And that is nothing else than a sales process. When you want to convince a person that they choose your organization about other people's organization, then you are working in a sales or in a close to sales position. You need sales skills. The question now is, how do you get it done? And of course, we can't go through all sales techniques here in this podcast, but just to give you the most important couple of techniques you need to learn now. So first, you need to know what are your USPs, and probably you heard that term. Unique selling points, some people say, or unique selling proposition. What is it that distinguishes you from others? For example, let's say you offer free food, or you offer free coffee, or you offer free water. And I'm reading this in job ads today that people say we offer free water for our employees. Congratulations on that. Free water. Amazing. Often people struggle to find what are the real USPs? What are the aspects I can mention? What are the aspects I can probably mention, but they don't have enough weight to convince someone? And what are the aspects I shouldn't mention at all? And there is a very simple technique. It's called the reverse technique. You reverse what you say. And when you come to the conclusion, let's say you offer, for example, a monthly public transport ticket. In London, for example, this can be worth £400, so quite a significant amount of money. And if you would now reverse that, going from public transport ticket, the opposite of that is no public transport ticket. And that would be a pity. And when you come to the conclusion it's a pity, then it is a real benefit. And please mention it when you talk to people. When you, however, say we offer free water, the opposite, if you reverse it, the opposite of that is we charge for water. And that is not a pity, that's an embarrassment. And when you come to the conclusion it's an embarrassment, please don't mention it as a benefit. If you insist on mentioning, oh, we have free water and we have a bit of free food, like a bunch of cookies, and we have some fruit in the office once a week, the basket gets filled up, and we have a nice team and flat hierarchies. First, anyone says that. Second, no one would admit if they don't. And third, especially when you say we have great leaders, when we look into the data we have, CMI, the Chartered Management Institute in London, published a study, 82% of all leaders received 0 minutes of leadership education before they became leaders. And that's, by the way, the reason why it goes as bad as it does when it comes to leadership at the moment. When you say we have great leaders, don't do the mistake when you know that they are not great, because people will have an expectation. So you have to find out what are your real USPs, and you need a whole list of them, because the talk you will have is probably longer. Adding to that, you need to explain to them what is your why. Why is the organization there? What drives you? What are the values you have? What is it that the organization is driven forward to do what they do? And that is something you have to explain in detail, because many people, especially younger people today, want to work for an organization that has an approach to sustainability, which is a real world approach and not something where you say, oh, we do carbon offset and that's how we try to get rid of our carbon footprint. No, you have to talk about what is the real why that you have. You, of course, have to talk about the benefits, what is the advantage working for you, and then you have to add one more thing. When you, for example, talk to senior managers, senior executives, you have to add at least 2 more KPIs. KPI stands for Key Performance Indicator. We're talking about numbers here. One is ROI. What is the return on invest? So what do I get back for the money I invested? And the other one is ROE, return on equity. So what we have already, how do you use that to get the best return out of this? These 2 numbers are the bare minimum you have to deliver, because otherwise it's just fluffy talk and claims. If you now want to work with serious sales methods, you have to focus on the WIIFM, W-I-I-F-M of the other side. W-I-I-F-M, WIIFM stands for what's in it for me. And of course, there are still some people out there who say, I need to focus on what? I offer work, I offer pay, I offer you to have an income, to have a good life. So don't you have to prove to me why I should pick you? Here's the news. No. When the people you have chosen to invite for an interview, either on site or online, are qualified for what they do, that means you have to prove why they should work with you. Because these people in today's times have the choice. Looking into demographics, by the way, shows you that we are not at the bottom of the chain yet. We will have a couple of years where even less people were born, so the talent shortage will be way worse in a couple of years. Be sure that you are prepared for that. The WIIFM, and of course what you like to know, is the inner mission of the other person. They won't tell you. No one in the first interview will tell you, I actually want to work here because it's close to my home, so I see my family the most. That's my main motivation to work for you. No one will tell you that. You will find out later. You can, of course, allude or try to find out the inner mission, but most likely you will not get an honest answer. And by the way, don't ask for the inner mission, because when you ask for the inner mission, you get one of these standardized answers they rehearsed before they even went to the office to talk with you or meet you online. So focus on the WIIFM and try to guess what is the inner mission of the other side. Serve it as best as you can. What you now have to find is, what is the common ground you have? Where can we cooperate? Where do we both agree? You now need to take this agreement when you now need something more. Let's say you need a couple of documents signed, or you need a copy of the ID, or you need to have a police report that they didn't commit any crimes. Any kind of positive aspect keeping them busy is a good thing. When you positively keep people busy, it means that you care and they know that you care. And now we get to a topic called reciprocity. When you care about the applicant, most likely, not always, but most likely the applicant will care about you. However, no matter how positively busy you keep them, always have a closing focus. Closing focus means nothing else that you need to have in mind. This is not a nice chat. This is nothing where we sit down and say, oh, just make up your mind and please get back to me whenever it suits you best. No. Closing focus means let's talk, find commonalities, find the common ground, let's cooperate, let's agree on these aspects, let's agree on the next steps. And then we also agree, when do you get back to me? When do I get the signed contract? You need to have the closing focus. This is why you often say in recruiting, you need people with a sales mindset, where often people say, what? No, I work in HR. Recruiting is only about finding the best talent. Well, what do you want to do? Find them and then not hire them because they always get hired by others because you were too slow and not closing focused enough? There you are. So you need to have a closing focus, and that means you have a sales mindset. You need a sales mindset to be a great recruiter or HR person in today's times. Let's sum this up. Sales always happens. Always. No matter if you need more money, more time, more people, if you have an idea, you want to have a salary raise, if you want to have extended time, want to leave early, want to check in later, if you want to avoid business travel or go on business travel, whatever you do, it's always a negotiation where you need to sell your idea to someone else so they agree with you. And that means sales always happens. Sales always happens, which means we all need it every time, all the time, anyone, everywhere. And that is, of course, a hard pill to swallow for some people, because some people might now say, I never had a sales training. And I know it might feel awkward in the beginning when for the first time you sell an idea to someone, but you need these sales skills. One of the reasons why some people progress more in their career than you do is because they are able to sell. Some people have less clue than you, but they proceed and progress in their career quicker than you because they're able to sell their ideas and you are unable to do so. When you now have questions and you say, hey, can we just chat? Of course we can. Just drop me an email, nb@nb-networks.com. I will mention the email address in the show notes of this podcast as well. You also find my LinkedIn there, so feel free to connect with me on there as well. Looking forward to chat and looking forward to receiving feedback and, of course, answering any kind of aspects, ideas, or questions you might have. Of course, when you want to talk about something very specific, you need a training or a coaching, you need speaking, whatever else you need, just let me know. We can talk about absolutely anything. You find my contact data in the show notes of this podcast. The second important aspect here is when you now say, are there live sessions? And yes, we just had one last Friday, which went very well. When you go to expert.nb-networks.com, when you sign up with your email address there, you only receive one email every Wednesday morning. And that email is, first, you get free access to anything I published, which other people pay for. But second, you always find the link to the next live session. You will always see when is the next live session and how can I access it. You don't have to pay for that. It's all free of charge for our readers and, of course, for our listeners here. And the third aspect is the most important one. By the way, this expert.nb-networks.com, the URL is also mentioned in the show notes of this podcast. The third aspect now is the most important one. Apply what you heard in this podcast. Because only when you apply what you heard, you will see the positive aspect of the positive changes happening that you obviously want to see with you, your team, your organization. I wish you all the best doing so. I'm available for help 24/7, so feel free to contact me anytime. And at the end of this podcast, there's only one thing left for me to say. Thank you very much for your time.